Welcome to another episode. I am really looking forward to the conversation for today, and I want to welcome Lisa Happ to our call. And basically, at the end of the day, right, she is a coach with a background that really helps her to be able to understand people, and she brings a lot of experience to the table. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So we will obviously include all of your contact information in the show notes. So if you like what you hear today, feel free to check out and connect with Lisa. But let's just go ahead and dive into it. So one of the things that I think a lot of my clients and a lot of my podcast listeners are experiencing is challenges with their soon to be ex. And a lot of them are high conflict situations. And so we're going to talk about some of the patterns that people might be recognizing as they are going through divorce from a high conflict perspective. So before we do that, though, can you define for us what high conflict is?
So, high conflict is I think all divorces can be considered high conflict depending on how you look at them because you don't get divorced because there is no conflict. Otherwise, we would not be getting divorced. But high conflict is when typically there is abuse in the marriage and post-marriage, whether it's emotional abuse, physical abuse, coercive control. I specialize in cases where there is coercive control and they're divorcing somebody with narcissistic tendencies, and those are always high conflict.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And the coercive control, right, is an imbalance of power that can disseminate pretty much any area of our lives, right?
Absolutely. And it's coercion. They use coercion and mind games to control you. And sometimes it does. There is physical abuse involved too, but it always starts with these types of individuals with coercion and coercive control, whether it's financial abuse, emotional abuse, using the children as weapons. It all comes down to devaluing the other partner, really dipping into their self-esteem and their self-identity, really making them have a lot of cognitive dissonance and confusion around what's going on, using manipulation and gaslighting to control their minds.
Yeah, isn't it scary? Like we live in a world where it's like this is actually happening. And I find that so many people, even people that work in the space, don't always see it. And I'm like, huh, isn't that interesting?
It's so interesting. And I think once you see it or once you've experienced it
Hmm.
for yourself, I was in a relationship like this for many years ago. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like I can be standing in a Whole Foods line and I can tell, like, I can, like, it's like see these off people. Like, I just thought of this because I just ran to Whole Foods this morning and the guy in front of me, I was like, ooh, you could just feel it coming off of him, the way he was speaking to the somebody in front of him.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's important for those of us who are in the space to remember, like we need to lean into that, right? Because we've seen so much of it. And I don't ever want to be bamboozled, right?
Right?
By by the people that, are like, "Oh, they're super charming" or whatever. I'm like, I don't know. I can see through it. Like and it's, again, I know you can too. So let's kind of dive into this. So we've kind of set the stage for, the patterns in high conflict. Let's talk about the first one. So coercion. Talk to us a little bit about, paint the picture for what that looks like. How can people recognize it? And then what are some things that they can do about it?
So it usually starts in any relationship, and it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship or a marriage, but with the love bombing stage, where the person you're entering into a relationship makes you feel amazing. They're everything you always wanted. They're the person you always wanted. They're very good. People that follow these patterns and use this type of abuse against others are very intuitive. They're very good at like recognizing your Achilles heel and really filling you up where you need it. Like they're going to figure out where your core wounds are very quickly, what you need to hear, and they're going to tell you all the things you ever wanted. They're going to be the person you always wanted very briefly. And then they're going to start to follow this cycle where they'll start to devalue you. They'll start to discard you. Then they're going to hoover back around. And the cycle continues and continues. And it creates this intermittent reinforcement within us. Our nervous systems become so addicted to this person that we can't live without them. We're constantly waiting for the next call, the next text, and then we end up in these cycles of relationships. And if you see the brain scan of somebody who's been in one of these relationships and you see the brain scan of somebody who is addicted to heroin, the person who's been in these types of relationships brain is more addicted than a drug user to this person. So they create this sense and this need for them. And what happens is we're always trying to get back to that first high, that first love bombing stage. We never reach that again, but we're always trying to find that stage. So they start to use this trauma bond and this addiction we feel towards them to start to control us. They start to do, a lot of times it starts, I'm trying to think. I'll use myself. I don't want to use a client as an example. So I'll use myself. I was in a relationship like this for many years. And at first he was like, wow, like you're getting kind of beefy. Or like, I don't like your hair like that. Or and I was like, well, that's kind of messed up. But then he would circle back to being like, and then he got meaner and meaner and meaner as time went on. But you're constantly like, because it's almost like they're kind of slowly poking you and pushing you down and down and down that you lose all sense of self. You lose your self-confidence and you're so controlled by them. And within that, they also isolate you. So they start to tell you, like, oh, your family and friends, they don't really like you. Oh, this person, she was saying X, Y, and Z about you. So they slowly isolate you to pull you away from your family and friends. They often try to get you to not work, to be at home more. So then you're more isolated, you're more controlled. And if you're not working, then they have financial control over you. Or in my situation, he was like, well, let me just go buy all the cars. That way I can just, you don't like to buy cars. But then my car was in his name. The house was in, like, everything ends up in their name. So, and at the time they've convinced you and you're so like addicted and trauma bonded to this person, you just think they're the only person that cares, the only person that's going to take care of you. And then what happens is one day your eyes open up to this and you are like, oh no, something happens. It's usually an event. It's like a series of events and there's usually one big event that happens and you realize, oh no, I have to get out. Typically that's what the story is with the women I work with also. And then once you're on your way out, it's hard because you're still addicted. You're still trauma bonded, but you know you need to get away. And that's where I come in, or a therapist comes in to really help you begin to see the other side and to break the trauma bond. And it is a process. Most people try to leave these relationships 7 times before they're successful because they have this mind control over you. They know how to pull you back in. So and then we enter into the divorce world where people are going through these high conflict divorces with these men who have been using coercion. I mean, some women I've worked with have been married to these men for 40 years. So trying to help them break the trauma bond, build their identity, and build their future so they can see the light at the end is a huge process, but completely worth it. And so if you're listening and you are in a relationship like this, I promise you, probably not going to be super fun to get out of, but it's amazing after.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think these are all really important, conversations, right? And things that people need to be thinking about as they're in the midst of it. And, like you said, I think the other part is, it's easy for us to recognize, I think a lot of times, like we need support as we're going through the process of divorce, right? But there's also this aspect of, after the divorce is over and still making sure that you have the team of people in place that can support you, because it is a process. I have always said, you can, it's going to be the onion, right? Like you're going to identify things and then you're going to deal with it. And then you think everything's good. And then you identify something else. And again, I mean, that's how healing works. If it all happened at once, right, we'd all be out of commission and probably not be able to even function.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've talked about coercion. Let's talk a little bit about triangulation, because I know that it's a fancy word for, getting people to turn against you, but let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, triangulation is a way to get people to turn against you and to manipulate people against you. They smear campaign you. They'll bring in some, I call them flying monkeys. I think a lot of people call it that, where they typically people that use this type of abuse have a lot of people around them, or they make sure they have people around them, kind of like the bully when you were a kid. If there was like a bully in your class when you were a child, they have all the people that hang out with the bully because they don't want to be bullied. So those are their flying monkeys, and they're able to manipulate them, and they sometimes send them out to do their dirty work. They'll often start to smear campaign you. So once they realize you're pulling away, maybe you filed for a divorce, maybe they've noticed they don't have as much control over you based on your behavior, they're going to start to smear campaign you because when they can't control you as much, they're going to try to control how other people see you. So what they may call your boss and tell them, I mean, I've seen some really crazy stuff. They may call your boss and say, "Oh, Rhonda said all this really awful stuff about you. Here's a text message she sent to me one day when she was really mad after work." Or they might call your mom or your sister and say, like, "Oh, well, she actually said this about you or that about," and they make up crazy stories that usually have a lot of details. Narcissists are known for stories with a lot of details because then people believe them.
Mm-hmm.
They start to expand out. They will start at your inner circle, see who they can grab, and then just expand out as a way to control you and a way to win because a narcissist always wants to feel like they're going to win. And also just a way to continue to isolate you more. And it also fills up their need for narcissistic supply. People like this need supply to feel good about themselves. So if these people in their mind are choosing them over you, it's filling up their need for validation and supply.
So what does somebody do about that if they recognize that that triangulation is happening?
What I recommend and what I did in my own life, because the more you try to say, no, 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 like that's not what's happening, this is happening, they're going to come back and do the same. And they're going to tell everybody that you're crazy. And I think, I mean, I've been this person in this situation. You do start to feel like you're a little crazy coming out of it. Um, I say do nothing. Go quiet. The people that are really important in your life and the people that truly know you aren't going to be pulled in. And if they are, they're going to come back really quickly and apologize. So instead of trying to go out there and convince the world that it's not you, that there's nothing wrong with you, that you didn't do it, I find the more that you do that, the more this person who's using that kind of abuse on you is going to push harder to get these people to dislike you. And it's what they want. You're inadvertently giving them your attention. I just say pull back, spend time with yourself, do the things that you love. It's amazing when you start to like move away from one toxic person, how you notice a lot of other people around you may also be toxic. So by removing those people or removing yourself from that situation, you're going to meet all kinds of new amazing people that are more aligned. And also, if they're trying to create all this chaos, they're trying to create like a fight and conflict. So if you just completely remove yourself from the conflict, they're not, it's a good way to tick them off because they're not getting what they want. They want the conflict. It gives them narcissistic supply. But also, if you take yourself out of the fight, there's no fight to fight anymore.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And, kind of along those lines. So let's say, for example, I mean, is that related to, or how does that play into parental alienation? Because if you have this aspect where they're convincing all of these people, right, or even attorneys or people in the legal system, and then you're dealing with, like I've seen it take a long time for kids to come back and realize what actually was going on.
Yes. So there is a whole strategy around children that are being alienated that I work with clients with. And it depends on the age of the child. It depends on the type of narcissist you're dealing with. But they do often, with the person using coercive control, they will pick at least one child. Typically, they pick the oldest child if you have multiple children, or the one they think is going to have the most pull and control over the other kids. And they make that child the golden child. This child can do no wrong in this abuser's eyes, but they're giving this child all the attention and all the validation they always wanted from the parent. That the parent, these people have never been amazing parents until they need the child to control the other parent. So they're giving the child and they're filling them up with their own sense of love bombing, giving them everything they want. They will eventually start that cycle of abuse I was talking about on the child in a little bit of a different way. The other parent, it's hard because we want to stick up for ourselves. We want to say, like, no, that didn't happen. That's not true. But I really encourage parents, I could do like, and 10 hours on this, but to try to do just parallel parent. Don't try to co-parent with this abuser where you're trying to connect with them and parent together and make rules together and set rules or and create a similar life in both homes. Parallel parent. You're each like if you picture like a railroad track, you're each on your own track. The track ends by getting the child to adulthood, but the tracks never cross. So keep minimal contact with the person that was abusive to you. And anybody that's an abusive to the mom is also abusive to the kids. I think inadvertently, if you're hurting somebody's mom, you're hurting the child. Try not to get into a power struggle with your child about he said, she said, but there's all kinds of ways. Document everything. You can use parenting apps to converse with the other parent because they also know that those can be used in court. So they're not going to be as abusive on those. There's ways to not say too much to your child. Like if they come home and say, well, my dad said that you're an idiot and you did X, Y, and Z. I'm trying to think of an example without giving anyone's like personal information. Say, oh, hurts my feelings that he said that. I know I'm not an idiot. What do you want? Like, and then switch it to positive. Like, what do you want to do? You just got home. I'm so happy to see you. What do you want to do? Make your home the safe home. This is great, especially for younger kids, but it actually works for teenagers too. So when your kids are coming back from your exes, especially in high conflict, but in all divorces, they're a little dysregulated. Their poor little nervous systems are all over the place. In high conflict, the other parent has probably not been saying the nicest things about you the whole time they've been there. They've been questioning them a lot about you. So make your house really a calm, safe place. I always recommend not doing the drop-offs at each other's homes and stopping somewhere. So if you're getting your children and you're meeting in a parking lot, your ex, don't go immediately home because their nervous system is all amped up.
Mm,
And so let their nervous system calm down a little. Take them to a park, take them to Starbucks to grab coffee, take them, I don't know, to get a snack somewhere, just so there's an in-between place. When they come home, have like a aromatherapy diffuser going and always have it have the same scent every time they come home. Have them figure out what scents they like. Lavender is great because it's very calming. Or maybe make cookies before they come home so it smells like nice and I mean, I don't cook, so I never did that. But, if you cook, I mean, it would just smell like burnt cookies if I did that. But if you can cook, do the cooking. Um, oh wait, and then have like a box on every one of your children's bed. Like those little they're like shoebox size Rubbermaid boxes, and they're only for when they come home. So before they come home, stick it on their bed and have something that like is good for each of the five senses. So something like maybe put chocolate in there, maybe put a picture of something they love in there, like a fidget toy or a soft blanket, a special little stuffed animal, something that is like just like
mm,
appeals to every one of their senses that's specific to them, and just leave it on their bed. And then because they typically like to go to their room and like reacclimate when they come back. So that's there for them. And then when they're done, just put it away until the
mm,
next time. So they have like a lot of grounding when they come back to your house. And it does take time. But if you make your house the safe space where you're not talking horribly, you can be honest, but you don't need to talk horribly about the other parent. And it's safe and it's comforting. And it's just like the kind house to come back to. Often it'll happen all on its own. It does take a little time. And I always remind my clients, look how long you fell for this ding dongs BS. So your kid
mm-hmm.
is their parent. They want to love their parent. They're getting all this attention from their parent. So as frustrating as it is and as angry as we feel towards our kids, because we're doing all the things to protect them, remember how long this person convinced you and pulled to you and how long it took you to really see them for who they are.
Mm. So I just love the practicality of what you just shared because I think there's so many times, right, when it's like, okay, you pick them up or they get dropped off, but the details matter. And like we've all been to what I'm picturing is from an adult version, right? Like you go to I went to a hotel, I went to a conference, I was at a hotel. I get there, somebody that I knew, right, had left a little, had the hotel leave a little treat in there, and I was like, no way! Like and so just those little small things of like, I know you're coming home, here's a little something. I think that is such a great idea. And it doesn't have to be expensive, just little something and then they start to look forward to that.
Exactly. And they know they were thought of when you were
I
gone.
love that.
They were gone, but in a positive way. Because the other parent, as soon as they see them, is gonna like drill into them. What did you do with your mom? What did she say? Oh, isn't she awful? Or X, Y, and Z. And they're going to talk about like, oh, well, I missed you. And they often tell the child like how sad they were when they weren't there. But they're coming home to your house where they know they were thought of. You don't need to tell them you thought about them or you were sad because there's something on their bed waiting for them. There's cookies for them or the house smells great or whatever it is that your children like. They already know you thought of them because the stuff is sitting there and waiting for them. You don't
Yeah.
need to tell them.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Um, so one of the other areas that kind of falls under these patterns that we're going to talk about during our time together is the cognitive dissonance. So tell us a little bit about what that is and the role that that plays.
The cognitive dissonance, and we all have it to an extent, but especially when you've been in one of these relationships, or even if you grew up with a parent who is, and often we end up in these relationships because we had a parent who followed this personality type. And it's just a way you're being told constantly, you're wrong. Between love bombing and then you're wrong, you didn't do that right. You're being gaslit all the time, you're being convinced everything is your fault. So the first question people often ask me, or one of the first questions when they start working with me is, do you think I am a narcissist? Do you think that it is me? So I will tell you, if you are asking this question, no. No narcissist is ever going to say, do you think I'm a narcissist? They think they're amazing. They don't think they're a narcissist. So if you're ever wondering if you're a narcissist, the good news is you are not. Um, and you go back and forth. Like you wonder, when I was in a relationship like this for many years, I would be like, okay, this is absolutely nuts. He is doing all of these things. And then I would be like, but wait a minute, maybe not. Maybe it was me. I was kind of grouchy that day. I had PMS that day, whatever it was. And I'm like, no, 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 it's definitely me. But the stuff, I mean, the guy did the craziest stuff, the absolute craziest stuff. But then I would somehow convince myself it was
Hmm.
because they train us, they train our nervous systems, they train our subconscious, they train our brains to make sure we believe everything is our fault.
Unbelievable, right? Like, so how do we deal with that? What's a tip that somebody might be able to use if they find themselves in that spot?
So I do a lot of brain spotting with people. I do a lot of subconscious reprogramming. One thing you can do on your own is trying to think of I was talking to a client a little bit earlier and her soon-to-be ex-husband is telling her how awful she is and how crazy she is and she's done X, Y, and Z and she's a terrible mom. And so she's like, yeah, I mean, I was really grouchy to my kids the other day. I was tired. And I'm like, okay, pull out a piece of paper. So this is the story that you're telling yourself. So I want you to write down all the reasons that you are the worst mom in the world. Like, and she's like, well, I'm not. And like, let's read over out. So let's make a list of all the amazing things you do for your children. So we make a whole list of all the reasons that she's an amazing person and an amazing mom and all the ways that she shows up for her kids. And then I have them record it in their voice memos on their phone. Like, I am an
Mm,
amazing mom because I wake up early with them every day. I am an amazing mom because I make sure they get outside every day. I'm an amazing mom because whatever, like, create your list and then say it in your voice memos and repeat it 3 or 4 times. And then just, if you're driving, play it in your car. Play it while you're falling asleep in it and let it go into your subconscious because we have a great way as humans anyway of always blaming ourselves. But when you're in a relationship like this and experience cognitive dissonance, you're always going to question yourself. So write it down, speak it, and then play it back to yourself.
I love that. I love that. And along those lines, one of the other things that's kind of prompted me to think about is early on in my career, I was part of a very male-dominated organization, right? And I needed to be able to kind of weed through some of that. And so I ended up taking the Strength Finder, the Gallup Poll Strength Finder, and there's 34 different themes, and so it gives you like your top 5 strengths. And it was interesting because it really helped me to solidify like the things that they were telling me were negative actually weren't. That was how I was wired and made me really good at what I did. So then I started encouraging my clients to do it. And one of my clients in particular, her husband, soon to be ex, was telling her, "Oh, you're not a caring person. You don't care about anybody, blah, blah, blah." So I said, "Listen, just take the strength finder and let's just see, kind of where you land and what your strengths are." And sure enough, one of her strengths was one that was really committed to caring, nurturing other people, right? No surprise. But I think sometimes there's just this aspect of, sometimes we do need third party validation. I'm like, where are my strengths?
Absolutely. It's so we're our own worst critic, right? We're
Yeah.
absolutely our own worst critic. And another thing people like this do, this made me think of that, is that if you're in a relationship with someone who's using coercive control, they're going to notice your strengths and they're going to notice you're kind and you're empathic, like this client you're talking about. And this person's not going to like that. This person that's using coercive control is not going to like that because that's something that's connecting you to people and maybe bringing you attention. They don't like that. So they're going to tell you the opposite. They're going to say, like, you're mean, you're a big B, you're this, you're that, because they're trying to take that away from you because they see that as a strength and they don't want you to be stronger than them. They don't want you to be seen as better than them. They don't want people to like you better than them. So they're going to strip that of you any way they can.
Yeah. Unbelievable, right? So, yeah, surrounding ourselves with the people, right, that can guide us, that can help us walk through this piece of it. And again, those third party validations, I think there's value to those, right? I mean, yes, we definitely have to get it in here, right? But until that time,
Yes, exactly.
we gotta
Exactly.
do what we need to do to make sure that we can navigate through those pieces. And so I love the practical because I think, when we're talking about high conflict, when we're talking about the patterns, which is essentially of patterns of abuse, right? It's hard to say, okay, I know this is happening, but what's practical? What's something I could do right now that would help me get grounded and be able to move forward? And I love that. I love it so much because I know that this has been extremely impactful and helpful, for the people that are listening today.
Thank you. Anything that we can share to help other people go through it, and then they share with somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. It just continues the healing and hopefully puts these coercive control people out of business. Like,
Oh, absolutely. I know. I mean, thankfully for me, right, the days of being around that is minimal because I choose who I'm around, and so I can create those fences and the boundaries and the locks. But that's my desire for all of my clients, right? All of our clients, as you get to the point where you're like, I'm controlling the center circle, and man, I've got amazing people in there.
yes, it is amazing, the amazing people. It's amazing when you find yourself in this relationship, you tend to find that maybe a lot of your friends are a little like that, or people in your family are a little like that. And then you have this massive, I see it with every single person. It happened to me, like house cleaning of people. And you start to think, oh crap, maybe it is me. I don't know. Because and then all these amazing people start to come in. You realize you were just surrounded by the wrong people all along.
I love that, which really dispels that myth. Like, hey, what's the common denominator in all these relationships? Oh, it's me. It's like, no, maybe it's, all the wrong people.
Different people, or you were like maybe your self-worth because you were accepting of all these people, you were taking care of all these people, and then you realize you don't want you anymore and they go away and way much better people come.
I love it. I love it. Well, as we wrap up our time together, I always like to ask, is there anything else, any final word of advice, your favorite quote, that you would like to leave our listeners with as we wrap up our time together?
I am going to say something. It's going to sound a little harsh, but my friend Lindsay said this to me when I was going through this, and I would complain about this man over and over and over to her. Finally, she was like, listen. And I was pretty ticked at her when she said it, but it was what made me finally leave. And she said, you know what? What you're not changing, you're choosing. So, what part of you is choosing? What part of you hates you enough to leave you in this place?
Mm,
And I was super mad, but it's the comment that finally got me out and made me walk away.
mm,
I guess I would ask your listeners that if you're in this situation, what you're not changing, you're choosing. So what part of you is still clinging to this and why? And that's a good question and to start unpacking and peeling the onion layers away. And if you just keep asking yourself why, and then when you have the answer to that, ask yourself why again. And when you answer that, ask yourself why again. And who knows what the answer will be, but I think it'll bring you a lot of clarity.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for the work that you are doing, and thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been amazing.